Business counts of 1 or 2 were suppressed, along with their employee counts. Remaining counts were random rounded to a base of 3, and employee counts were GRR'd. This resulted in a number of suppressions which our customers were not happy with. An example presented here is total New Zealand other livestock farming industry and the same industry in a smaller New Zealand region. This was illustrated of a lot of breakdowns in the BD data. You can see the large number of confidential sales. As we had to push through the 2015 method quite quickly, after the release we took a step back and went back to our customers to identify what their concerns were. In summary, they wanted more data available and, if possible, a standard confidentiality method used in the output of all BD tables. So we initially tried some variants on the 2015 method, loosely based around random rounding, including GRR rules. However, we could not reach an appropriate balance between sufficient protection and the release of as many cells as possible. This is when we started exploring noise methods. We saw these being used successfully in the likes of the US Census Bureau with the noise infusion method, and also Australia with the protection of their frequency tables on their Table Builder product. The advantage of the noise method we settled on, noise for counts and magnitudes, is there's no suppressed cells and consistency of cell values across different tables. So how does it work? Each business is assigned a random number called a seed, which is consistent across each year. This is between 0 and 1. For both single and multiple location businesses, the seeds are consistent across the business. This is to ensure that corresponding tables and outputs are perturbed in a similar way as possible. This is also the same across enterprise groups. Here's an example of business counts. So business counts are rounded to base 3. If we look at a cell with 4 geographic units, we firstly add up the total value of the seeds, which is 1.698. We then take the non-integer part, i.e. 0.698. Now here there is a 2/3 possibility, i.e. up to 0.667, that the cell will be rounded to the nearest base of 3. There is a 1/3 probability, i.e. greater than 0.667, that this will be rounded to the furthest multiple of 3. But we can see in this case we will round to the furthest multiple of 3, which is 6, because the value is greater than 0.667. We add an extra layer of uncertainty to protect cells with a rounded business count of 0. This is because without protection, those with non-zero employee counts must have a business count of 1 or 2, which is a disclosure risk. So cells with an actual count of 3 are rounded to 0, 6, or stay at 3 with an equal probability of each. This means the rounded cells with a count of 0 could have an actual count of 1, 2, or 3. Moving on to employee counts, the seed is firstly used to generate a noise multiplier at the business level. Each business with a seed of less than 0.5 has its employee count multiplied by 0.9, while above 0.5 is multiplied by 1.1. Then the total cell is rounded with increasing rounding bases as the noise employee count gets bigger. For example, employee counts under 22 are rounded to 3, and from 22 to 99 rounded to 5, and so on. We apply a different rule for employee counts of less than 10 to ensure sufficient protection. The employee count for each business is kept the same, or one added, or one taken away with a 33% probability. You can see the example here compares the 2015 rule with the NCM rule. We can see no value can be obtained from the Auckland Region Central Bank category using the 2015 rule. However, all cells are populated using the NCM rule. This slide shows the application of the NCM method in practice. It shows the change in employee counts by New Zealand Regional Council by applying the method. You can see in nearly all cases the change is less than 1%, resulting in minimal loss of analytical value. And a similar case when we break down by ANZIC industry. So we learnt through this experience how important communication with our users is. After the 2015 release, we had key users involved to provide feedback as we developed the new noise method. Prior to the first release of data, we ran both internal and external user sessions, which were valuable. Since implementation, we have seen the benefit of introducing a relatively simple method. Our customers are happy, and we've been able to roll it out across a wider range of outputs such as our agriculture production statistics, and ensuring a greater level of consistency of methods used across our outputs. Thank you.
Thank you, Matthew. Reactions from the audience, questions, remarks? Can't see your tags. Use your hands. Okay, Matthew, I have a question. You explained in your paper and also in your presentation that you, until 2014, you released unconfidentialized data. And then you changed to the new system and you made confidentiality backwards also, as I understood, until 2000. And that brought you in some difficulty.
Yes.
Why did you do it?
Well, we wanted to release as big a time series as possible using the new noise approach. But we did appreciate the fact that we were re-releasing data via the noise method that we previously had released unconfidentialised, apart from some random rounding for the employee counts. So what we did to protect that is we reset the seed in 2015. So we had one seed consistent across businesses up until 2014. Then from 2015, we changed the seed. So there was a slight disconnect in the series, but it was necessary to ensure protection of the cells in the series.
Thank you. Andrew.
Sort of a strange question, but why is it that the business count is itself disclosive? Is it a big deal that there is one business in agriculture in one area? Couldn't you have just suppressed the employment when there are a small number of businesses instead? Because it's the employment which is probably the most sensitive part.
Yes, so that was what we previously did. But I'm talking about the counts here, but sort of legal interpretation of our Statistics Act, Section 37, under Section A, it's more or less under no circumstance should an individual or employee or household be able to be identified when we release our statistics. And there's another part which is Section C, which actually allows our chief statistician to release lists of businesses at her discretion, but we've more or less chosen never to exercise that because of, might be a bad look for trying to, on behalf of our respondents and so on. So up until 2014, we were kind of applying a drive-by principle. So if you go down the street, you can kind of count the number of retailers potentially. So it wasn't a massive disclosure risk, but following a review, it was determined that it probably was. So we that's why we moved to this new method.
Somebody else with a question? Okay, Matthew, thank you again. So our next presenter is Maria Rosa Lunati from the OECD. Please go ahead.
Thank you. So what I will do with this presentation is to share with you some thoughts that we had in the recent year and a half at the OECD about the way birth rate and the data on the creation of enterprises are interpreted by analysts in research, and so also thought about probably the way we disseminate the data and what we can do, and if anything needs to be done to disseminate the data in a different way. So how all this reflection started? You know that there, in the past few years, there has been a lot of research on the reason why productivity growth is declining in many OECD countries around the world. And among the studies in this area, there is a stream of work, a stream of research on business dynamics, which is a study on the entry and exit of enterprises and how the entry-exit affect productivity at the level of the economy. And so we reviewed a number of studies where the finding pointed to the declining birth rate in a number of countries, and the association of the decline of the birth rate of enterprises to the slowing down of the productivity growth. While looking at this result, we realized that we observed data in research papers, but then we have at the OECD the database on structural and demographic business statistics, which include all the statistics that your statistical office produced, and we couldn't really find the same patterns of declining birth rate over time. At least there are really few countries that have long series of birth rate, because as all of you know, the business demography is a new statistical area. So there was already this issue of what does it mean decline, long-term declining rate. But also that in fact, even for same countries where colleagues were mentioning a decline, we in the data from our database, we were not really seeing the same pattern, and in particular in several countries which it was indicated a decline in startup rate. We observed that in fact this decline did not appear in the levels. And so the question, we started to think, but what does it mean in terms of policy recommendation? Because obviously all the work that we do in the production and analysis of data is then meant to produce policy recommendation. And so by reviewing the data, we observe an obvious fact is that typically in international studies, researchers focus especially on rate. They are interested in startup creation, and they would not look for international comparisons of levels, but they would look at rate, and this is, in a sense, is normal that that this is done because of the scale effect, and you cannot. It doesn't doesn't have much sense to compare the level of creation in Malta and in Japan or in countries with different size. And I jump in a sense to the conclusion that we realize that the fact that this practice enters in the studies on startup creation, the focus on rate only, has produced some problem. It is a partial view of what are the entrepreneurial dynamics in a country, with the possibility that the messages, the recommendation, the indication that are then formulated in terms of policy making are not the best, are not really appropriate for the country. If we go back to the 2005, 2006, when all the work that then was translated in the Eurostat OECD manual on business demography statistics was prepared, at that time there was in the preparation and in the identification of the best, what were the key indicators, key possible indicators to track enterprise creation across countries, and this key indicator of birth rate was identified. There was analysis at that time of the numerator and the denominator of the rate, but this was more in a view of ensuring comparability. So the reasoning was if we, at the numerator, we should make sure that all the country have real birth and not some country real birth and other entries creation that include other events. And the same for the denominator, where the concern were about the ensuring that the population considered as denominator was the same across country. So just to point that there were all these reflections, but it was more about if we want to have birth rate that are really comparable, we should make sure that what is the element to compute the rate are comparable, which is a different point to what we now are, what I'm presenting to you, which is more about interpreting the data. So we simply did to make our thoughts about these findings more concrete, we checked and we simply plot the data for all the OECD countries to realize what were the patterns in terms of rate, level, and stock of enterprises. And this is really simple and obvious. So we have, for instance, the first case of Germany where there are declining enterprise birth rate and at the same time declining over time the level of birth. A second case, Luxembourg, a very small economy where we also observe a small decline of birth rate over time, while the level of enterprise creation, which obviously are quite, I think the first point on 2000 is 2,400 units, something like this, and at the end you have 2,800, so not a big change. But still, so we have two countries for which would be grouped together in the analysis of what's going on in terms of startup rate at the international level, and that both countries would enter in a group for which more action is needed in terms of boosting entrepreneurship in the country. does it really reflect what the underlying patterns in the country? And then, I mean, I think you understand what is the type of reasoning. Then we have the example of the UK, where there are increasing from 2000 to 2016 birth rate, and also increasing level, and a different case, Spain, where the birth level from 2000 to 2016 has been increasing, but the birth rate was rather stable. So this is all. And the point is that we realize that the way data on business demography are disseminated at the national level is rather complete, in the sense that and there are examples of statistical release from all your office, where you typically present the rate, present the trend in terms of levels. So there is the whole context. But unfortunately, when the data are used for international studies, because of this problem of the scale effect, researchers tend to not to pay attention to the levels, with this possible confusion or not right message in terms of what policymakers need to do. And so this is something that now we understood. We think that we will start, for instance, in our publication that I think you know, Entrepreneurship at a Glance, where we disseminate the data that we collect, that you collect, and we put in the database. We will certainly draw attention on this type of simple but important considerations, and also, but this goes a little bit beyond the problem of dissemination and interpretation. We also understood that there is a sort of, because business demography is still rather new, the expectation in terms of what is the ideal trend of a birth rate are not completely clear, because if you take other domains like school enrollment in primary, at the primary level, so you could say, okay, what I would like to see is that enrollment rate of enrollment are always growing over time, and so. But what do you really expect from birth rate of enterprises? What is the ideal trend that we would like to observe? So this is a further step that goes, that maybe goes with the dissemination, maybe not. But this is what I wanted to share with you. If you had similar thought in the recent past, or if you have any reaction on these few observations. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Maria Rosa. As you asked yourself for reactions, I repeat that. What do you think about it?
There are no reactions.
No reactions? I have a personal German reaction on your Germinal slide. I was surprised about that decline in the number of stock of enterprises that we have in Germany in the last years. Mm-hmm. Where you got it from?
These are data that are Eurostat data. Yes, okay. Yes, these are, we at the OECD, we do not, in the Statistics and Data Directorate, we do not produce any data. For countries that are in the European Union or in the European statistical system, we have an agreement with Eurostat that we draw the data from their database, so these are Eurostat data, and for the other OECD countries that are not in the Eurostat system, there is an annual collection where we send requests to country, with the specification that are the same specification as the Eurostat data, and then we publish them in the OECD database.
Yeah,
so these are your data. It's not.
So I guess if I now pass the question to Eurostat, they will pass them on myself again.
On
back,
yourself, yes.
I take it home and ask.
So there is no manipulation from our side.
I expressed just a personal surprise, and I will take back that number to Germany and check. Thank you very much. Other reactions?
Yeah.
Okay, Andrew Allen? Who?
There is Canada, maybe.
Canada?
First.
Okay, I didn't realize, sorry. Canada?
Hello, thanks. I'm just wondering if there's any consideration given to combining this data with other types of possible demographic data like profit rates, declining profit rates in certain industries, and how that maps onto the birth rates in those industries. So manufacturing versus financials, for example.
No, but you are absolutely right in the sense that as I said, we understood that the thinking about what you should understand with a birth rate is probably not yet developed. And so the fact that is a decline a bad event? Does it reflect concentration, which makes possibly a specific industry more efficient? So there are several levels of problem in the problem, and the one you just mentioned is that in fact it's how do we read a certain number of or a small decline? Should we necessarily read it as a bad event that require at the end of a report a recommendation to Canada about doing something more to support more entrepreneurship in the country? Maybe not, and then here we don't see these are the level of the business economy, and then obviously there are different patterns by sector. But so the answer to your question is that you are right. That is very much a matter of understanding the specific evolution in an industry, in the sector, and the fact of having this type of aggregate message or the fact that there is a decline and you immediately are scared and stressed, and this is associated to a decline of entrepreneurship or entrepreneurial dynamism, maybe is not the way we should read the data.
Okay, Andrew Allen from the UK.
Thank you very much, Mario. This obviously is quite complicated in how to get your head round, and I was just trying to think about it a little bit. So why is it that a decline in birth rate is potentially not necessarily a bad thing? You have to look at it in the context of the deaths as well, don't you? Which I don't think you've talked about. Because if every year you've got the same number of births but no deaths, then your birth rate is going down anyway. So it very much depends on the context of deaths, which I think you need to look at. That's all. It's weird.
No, but this is the whole point, that we, by reviewing studies, studies done at the OECD in other parts, not in the statistics and data directorate, because we do more descriptive statistics or paper on methodology, but not paper for policy making. So both studies done by other colleagues at the OECD or by researchers at the international level. And we notice that there is this focus that is only on one part of the problem, and which makes the final analysis, understanding a partial view, because you should see what's going on the death side, and the fact that more firms are surviving is rather a positive event rather than a negative one. So it's really the fact that there is a partial view, and this made us thinking that the way we communicate and the way we disseminate this still new data should be maybe more complete, especially the dissemination at the international level, because as I said the country releases are more complete, but in what we do, for instance, in the entrepreneurship at a glance, we never pointed enough the attention to the levels. We never we never explained to what extent, even if it seems obvious for statisticians, the birth and the death are associated through the denominator. So this type of considerations probably would help a lot the researchers and avoid this type of loop in the reasoning. Or so yes, you are right.
Okay. One more question. Is there?
Yeah, I was thinking that normally you do not look at one indicator. Normally, if you try to explain something, you have also the possibility to look at 1, 2 year and 3 or 4 or 5 years survival rates, and that I think that would stabilize things more. So without having information about profits, and so I think that is going to be a much more stable phenomenon that describe the developments in an economy better than just look at one side.
No, again, you are perfectly right. This is something that we should, the type of message that we should convey also to analysts, that sometimes they take a shortcut because of many reasons, and in fact, even when the indicator, when the key indicator of business demography were designed, there was the idea that you need not only one measure. At the beginning of the 2000, researchers and analysts, they were looking to the one measure to understanding enterprise creation in countries. So one could have thought, okay, let's do the startup, the birth rate, and that's fine. But this was not what, there was a much more complete view, because you analyze birth rate with survival, with death rate, the whole package together. But this is not necessarily what is going on in research, and this is the point.
Okay. Thank you again, Maria Rosa. Thank you again. So, thank you to all the presenters.
Close this,
You made this one of the most dense sessions we had, 5 presentations in 1.5 hours, and it competes the density of desserts in my stomach, I must say. And not to spoil this record, I close this session. Thank you very much. I guess we have now some announcements and the closing of the meeting by our hosts from Switzerland.
So we came at the last point on the agenda. In Italian we say morto un papa se ne fa un altro. So when a pope dies, another has been invented, has been created, has been done. In French there is mort le roi, vive le roi. That's not so Republican, but that means that if something is going to an end, is finishing, it is necessary to continue, to look forward, to move to another goal. And what is happening with the Wiesbaden group? No, we are in Neuchâtel. Neuchâtel meeting is now finished. It's now finishing. We are at the end, but we have to look forward and see where do we meet into 2 years. And for this reason, I give the floor to Arturo and Ugo. They have a quite important communication for everybody. Now I'm trying to find the mouse. C'è, ma non si vede. Arriva. V3. Ok.
Dove non lo pongan, no? Okay. Thank you, Claude. I can inform you about the next session of our group, and I tell you that that the steering group invite to INEGI to INEGI Mexico. INEGI is the National Institute of Statistical and Geography. The other G is Geography. And to host the 27th meeting of the Wiesbaden Group in Business Register that will be held in 2020. And INEGI Governing Board accept the invitation. So it will be an honor to welcome you and to have the opportunity to organize the meeting on September 2020. This meeting will take place in the city of Mérida. Mérida is the capital of the state of Yucatan, in the peninsula of Yucatan, in southeast of the Mexican country. And Hugo and your team prepare a 2-minute video for, I hope that this serve and give us the information, but to show you what is Mérida, what is the region, and for that you will the information and take the invitation for go with us in 2 years. I push. It's a local video. It's not a professional, but
Wiesbaden Group 2020. The National Institute of Statistics and Geography of Mexico, INEGI, will be the next host of the 27th meeting of the Wiesbaden Group in 2020, which will be held in the city of Mérida, capital of the state of Yucatan, in southeastern Mexico. According to the intercensal survey conducted by INEGI in 2015, Mérida has 1,068,764 inhabitants. It is a city that inherited the ancient traditions of the Mayan culture, and it will provide hospitality and warm attention to the Wiesbaden Group. Mérida is called the White City because of the predominant heat in 9 months of the year. Most of the inhabitants traditionally tend to wear white clothes, and the Mayan houses with palm roofs are also white. There are several tourist attractions in the state of Yucatan, such as civil and religious architecture, museums, archaeological sites of the Mayan culture, including one of the 7 wonders of the world, Chichen Itza. You can enjoy the jungle, the cenotes, which are reservoirs of spring water, and reserve areas of the biosphere. The climate during the month of September in Mérida is characterized by its high humidity and average temperatures of 30 degrees Celsius, which is approximately 87 degrees Fahrenheit. The city of Mérida is very well connected, both by its international airport, Manuel Crescencio Rejón, and by its proximity of 289 kilometers to the Cancun International Airport, which practically connects it to the whole world, since it receives flights from almost 50 airlines from 100 airports worldwide. You'll be welcomed. We look forward to seeing you there.
we look forward to your presence and participation in the 27th meeting of the Wiesbaden Group. Thank you very much.
So, we are at the end. And there is just 3 information more. The first one is the PowerPoint presentation. Don't worry, all presentation, PowerPoint file, and so on, and keynote speeches will be uploaded on the site of the Wiesbaden Group. But please be patient. Next week. Tomorrow it's a little bit early for us. Then some of you asked more information about the excursion of yesterday afternoon. So they asked for the route, the name of the place we have been, and so on. We are happy to prepare a short document with the information and send it to you soon. Then there is a last point, the pictures. Everybody took a lot of pictures yesterday and during the whole meeting. If you have picture that you think would be interesting and nice for everybody, please send them to me, and I will create a Google photo page and put them all there, so you can have then access and download it and see all the picture we took during this week. Okay, so at the end, thank you, all of you, for coming, for your contribution, for your participation, questions, for your good mood, for everything. It was a pleasure to have you here. See you next time, in 2 years in Mexico. I would just to say a big thanks also to Lucy. I don't know if she's there. Yeah. Our Deus ex machina, because for all was what she did in the months ago and during the meeting, the conference. It was great. Thank you very much, Lucy. Then also big thanks to Julia that organized the excursion yesterday in a fantastic way. I think everybody enjoyed. And it was perfect, well done, excellent. Julia is not here, but I think we can clap your hand. Okay, and then big thanks also to the young colleagues, the staff, those with the red ribbon. They did an excellent job as well during the whole week. Thank you to them. Okay, that's everything from my part. I don't know if Fabio will add something. And yeah, thank you again, and have a safe trip back home. And see you in 2 years.
I hope to interpret the feeling of all of us. And I just want to say a big thank you for the organization and to our Swiss colleague. Everything was perfect. I suppose that we share this feeling. I think that the participation in the Wiesbaden group is always a special event. But I think that in this Neuchâtel meeting, it was even special, thanks to the quality of everything. We enjoyed everything. We enjoyed the location, the food, too much food maybe. We enjoyed the trip of yesterday, even if it was too much fromage for me, but it was okay, it was special, and I will remember forever. So thanks to Claude, Fabio, and the other Swiss colleague. So we just have a little present for you, but it's very, very few in comparison to the very big events that you organize. Thank you again.
Julia.
colleague in Geneva. He's waiting for you. Lucy! So, thank you very much. So I will do like Federer, you know that it's always thank you to the ball boys, thank you for that, thank you for the sponsor. We have also the sponsor, so we thank the sponsor, it's something very important. And I hope that you will enjoy also Merida. We were there last May, and it's very beautiful. So, Neuchâtel is dead. Happy Merida.
Just to say thank you. It was a pleasure for me. So thank you very much for your kindness. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Bene.
See you. Ma che sorpresa! Ma che sorpresa!
Che sorpresa!
Serena? Volevamo mettervi tutte le firme, tutte le cose così.